Wilson from AccuPet Vet.
Hi guys.
And we just wanted to take a few moments, and talk about prevention as it relates to pests and what do you call them?
The prevention in pets.
Yes.
I think that's what you're trying to say.
So go ahead, Dr. Tasha
Sure.
Wilson.
So I wanted to take some time today to talk to you about prevention for your dogs and your cats regarding fleas and ticks, mosquitoes. It's really something that a lot of people don't think they need in the winter. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about that and why it would be important to actually continue your pet on this prevention during the cold season. But before I start, I do want to introduce this guy to you. This is Ken Wilson. He actually is my husband, and thankfully I'm able to steal him once a month to do a Facebook Live. So we'll be continuing to do this every month, and he'll be able to help us do the interview. And feel free to send comments. Both of us will be looking at Facebook, so you might see us look over to our left a little bit to make sure there's no comments, and to answer any questions you might have in this process or during this process.
Great. So obviously we want to talk a little bit about pests, and specifically those that affect our pets, as we said. And as we're coming into the winter time, you oftentimes don't think that pests are really a problem. However, you're really here today to talk a little bit about why they are a problem and why we need to be thinking about them and how to prevent them.
Mm-hmm.
So, going into this time of year, what are the types of pests that you think we really need to be concerned about, Dr. Tasha?
Yeah, so I want to first talk about fleas and ticks, because it's not uncommon for pet owners to take their pet off this prevention. And believe it or not, we will have them. In fact, I used to work in traditional clinics, did it for 15 years, and I will tell you, I saw more flea issues in people's pets during the winter than during the season. And that was very, very surprising. You wouldn't think that would happen.
That's interesting. Yeah, so you're saying fleas are, or can be, more of a problem in the winter time than they are during the summer months. And why is that?
Yeah, and I feel it's primarily because we don't think we need the prevention. And what happens is we stop the prevention thinking that it's too cold outside and that the animals aren't going to pick them up. But they do. Fleas, they don't actually die in the winter. Now, of course, if it's like days and days and days and weeks below freezing, they will eventually die, but they don't die as easily as we think. The snow actually gives them some insulation. So not only do we hate the snow because we hate the snow, but we should hate the snow even more knowing that a lot of these little pests are linger around under there. And then during the warm days, they actually will come out and land on our pet. And if we stop the prevention too early, they'll come into the house and they'll go on our pet, and then they will go ahead and continue their life cycle.
Oh, it's really interesting, especially since we're thinking that we're going to get some snow here in another day or so. So
don't stop your flea prevention.
Right.
Did you know how many eggs a flea lays in a day?
No.
I want you to guess. You've seen a flea before. You know how small they are.
I don't know, maybe 5.
50. 50
Wow.
eggs. So if that dog comes in with one flea, you're going to get 50 eggs in a day.
Wow.
And then you're going to have a problem. And I think that's why I saw so much. And indoor cats, too, are affected by this, because not only do they come in the dogs, but if there's flea eggs out there in our friends' homes or our family's homes or outside, the eggs will actually stick to our pants and come into our house that way, too.
Yeah, Dr. Tasha, I don't really think a lot about fleas as being something that I need to be that concerned about. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's itchy, and our pets can be irritated by that, of course, right? But why do we need to be concerned about fleas on our pets?
Fleas do a lot of damage. So not only do they cause irritation, you see a lot of dogs itching out there with fleas. Cats, by the way, they don't tend to itch as much. They groom a lot, so they actually will groom because they're irritated by them, and they'll swallow the flea. And when they do that, they actually can get tapeworms. So that's just an FYI. If you think you might have fleas, but you're not seeing anything on your cat, doesn't mean you don't have any, because they do groom a lot. And so then you have also animals that have flea allergies. So a lot of times they get severe irritation, and that can be a concern where you have actually bacterial skin infections because of the allergy.
Well, interesting.
It does get worse, actually. So I'm going to cut you off because
Okay.
something else I want to mention before we go on is the chances of an animal getting decreased red blood cells because of fleas. Now that can be because the fleas there's too many of them, and they suck the blood, and when they do that, their red blood cell count can drop. Not only that, they can introduce a bacteria in their bloodstream that will actually attack the red blood cells, which can be fatal to our pets. So, we always think about, I think it's great that you brought that up, because we always think about the skin irritation. We're like, well, the skin doesn't look too bad, it's okay, and that's understandable, because if it doesn't look like it's irritating the pet too much, maybe you're not going to be too concerned about finding out what it is, because it seems to be getting better, or something like that. But if it is caused by a flea, it can cause more problems.
So I'm just curious, as you talk a little bit about the red blood cell issue, anemia, what does that look like in pets, and what kind of effects does that have on the pets?
Yeah, so when you have anemia, their red blood cells, if there's not enough red blood cells, they can't get enough oxygen to their cells to make them, so they get really sick and they can die. Before you continue though, it looks like someone had made a comment that they can't hear us very well. So can you guys give us some feedback on that, how you're hearing us? I just want to make sure that before we continue that you can hear us.
Well, maybe we continue on.
Okay, just keep on letting us know how things are, and I'll raise my voice a little bit louder.
And I'll talk a little louder as well. So thank you. So we talked a little bit about fleas, and obviously fleas are a big problem, and fleas are breeding continually throughout the wintertime, especially in our homes and in places where they get the warmth. But you talked a little bit also about ticks, and so what is the big problem with ticks in the winter? I've very rarely see a tick in the wintertime. I mean, it seems to me to be quite strange to have that type of an issue going on with our pets then. So tell us a little bit about why ticks are a problem in the wintertime.
Yeah, well, I will. I'll start with a story too for you. When I first moved here in 2006, I had multiple cats, and I had indoor and outdoor cats. And actually, one of my cats came in the middle of January with ticks on them, and I didn't know. I was shocked. That's the first time I've ever seen a cat with ticks in the winter, and it made me start thinking, wow, this is why not only are we worried about fleas, but we're worried about ticks as well. Mm-hmm. So ticks, just like fleas, can go underneath the snow. And in 2019, I think it was March of last winter, there's a whole bunch of biologists in Maine that looked into ticks in the winter and if they could survive. And so they set up tick traps underneath the snow, and they kept an eye on them and to see how many of them would survive. And 40% of them survived. The other thing that they took from that too is they do think not only is the temperature changes, because like I mentioned before, you have the snow and then the change of temperature, and then they come out and get on our pets, but they think the bacteria in the ticks that we're seeing more and more that can cause disease in our pets is actually making them more hardy in the winter and surviving winter longer than before. That's
really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that previously more ticks would die during the wintertime, but since there's more bacteria that's living within these ticks, they're actually more hardy and more resilient to the cold. Right?
That's what they're thinking at this point. Yeah, because they were very surprised to see so many ticks survive the winter.
Another thing that I heard recently as well, just a few weeks ago, there was an article that spoke about not raking our leaves so that we would see more more natural fertilization in our lawns, right, or in our yards. Why could not raking our leaves be a problem with respect to fleas and ticks?
Yeah, I read that article, and I think it's a great idea and great thought. But you just got to be careful, because mosquitoes, ticks, fleas, all of them will take that area and actually live under it. And then they're more prone to be around more on our pets during the winter months. And that can cause, like I said, more issues with diseases. And you'll see more fleas and ticks in your house during that time. And don't forget, too, these ticks are not only causing issues with your pets, but they can bring in diseases. And if a tick gets in your house and they have a bacteria in them that can cause Lyme disease, for example, they can land on you. So you want to be cautious of that. They actually did a study about mosquitoes and leaves and found that's where a lot of mosquitoes go in the winter. So when we think we don't have mosquitoes in the winter, they're actually there.
Interesting.
And then, of course, it's usually we have a lot of wet winters, so sometimes we have a lot of rainy days, and that can cause some problems with the mosquito issue.
Yeah, very interesting. So, switching gears now, we've talked about fleas and ticks and how they continue to be a problem even in the winter months. So we need to be protecting our pets, our dogs and our cats and other animals, with flea and tick prevention, right? Helping them from that perspective. But also, as you talk about mosquitoes, heartworm continues to be a problem in the winter as well, correct?
Yes, yep. And primarily, that's one thing that I want to talk to you about, because heartworm disease is something that can be quite fatal in our pets. And we are seeing more and more of heartworm disease. I just wanted to give a shout out to you guys listening. Thank you for your comments. I'm glad you can hear me well. I just saw that pop up, so thank you. So with heartworm disease just takes one mosquito bite. And what happens is when a mosquito bites your pet, there's a parasite that gets into the bloodstream. And then they go and travel to the heart and they start reproducing. And they cause heart disease, and it can be fatal. So that's why it's really, really important to keep your pet on heartworm prevention.
Interesting. So, just in terms of mosquitoes, I rarely see mosquitoes in the wintertime, right? So, to me, that seems a little far-fetched, but you're saying that is in fact the case. The mosquitoes actually do survive through the wintertime, as you said, under the leaves and in other wet areas, right?
It does, and it's something that years ago we didn't worry too much about as veterinarians, and we would stop. We would tell clients keep them their pet on heartworm prevention until about October, November, and then put them back on in March and April. Well, I don't know if you've been aware of this, but that recommendation has changed, and they now are saying doing it year round because of this. And from a personal experience I had with my friend's dog, who was on heartworm prevention all the time, it was around the time that we were changing gears and changing our recommendation. He was still doing the taking them off in October, November months and then putting them back on in March and April. And unfortunately, his dog came down with heartworm disease.
Interesting. So it's not just the fact that the mosquitoes could still be alive through the winter months and the dogs or cats could be bitten then, but it's also the way that the medication works.
That's
correct?
A very good point. Yes. So thank you for bringing that up. So I don't know how many people know how heartworm prevention works. I'm going to go in a little bit more detail about that, because basically what happens is it's called a heartworm prevention. But when an animal actually takes this heartworm medication, it actually treats anything that the dog was exposed to. So if they got bit by a mosquito and that parasite is in their bloodstream, that heartworm prevention will start killing it. Sometimes it takes repeated treatments before that heartworm the heartworm disease actually dissipates and goes away and that parasite dies. So if you are treating monthly throughout the summer, and then let's say in October you decide to stop, your pet might be in the middle of a treatment, and then you basically have stopped that medication from killing that heartworm, and that heartworm could potentially continue to grow and then cause a problem with your pet.
Interesting. So we've talked about fleas and ticks, we've talked about heartworm prevention, right, and the need for that year-round. Let's go into a little bit about intestinal parasites, and that sounds so fun, doesn't it? Why are they so important to treat for in the wintertime as well?
So we still see a lot of intestinal parasites in the winter. A lot of them actually flourish and enjoy these cold winter months. So we still have problems with our pets getting these parasites. in the wintertime, it's really important to make sure that you follow through with the recommendations for fecal checks, especially after the winter. There is an intestinal parasite called Giardia that's out there, and I think about that one because it takes a lot of sun and heat for multiple days. So sometimes it's actually 10 to 14 days of intense sun on an area for that Giardia to die. And they love the cold and they love the rain and being wet. So come our rainy seasons after the winter's done, we hit March and April, the snow's gone. These parasites are gonna love it because now they're gonna get a nice environment for them to thrive in, and then our pets are going to get it. There's something in particular too I think about in the wintertime, and Ken knows exactly what I'm talking about.
We were talking about this earlier. It's just a disgusting thought.
Poopsicles, and I'm sure you guys have heard it before. And I know all those out there who have dogs have probably seen these poopsicles. But what I mean by that is the frozen poop that's out there. And I don't know why, but it's like a delectable dessert for them. Some dogs that don't even touch poop during the spring and the summer just go right for it. So it's really, really important to make sure that you actually pick up your dog's stool right afterwards too. And that's in any season. But I will tell you, the dogs that tend not to go after stool tend to really like this new treat out there in the winter. So you wanna be cautious of that. And I know it's cold, and if you're anything like me, it's really hard to go out there and to follow them and to pick up that stool. But really, really important.
So as we've talked about these the fleas, the ticks, the heartworm issue, as well as just thinking about intestinal parasites. Those are things that we're concerned about through the summer months, right? But you're saying that these are all very, very important areas to continue to treat for and continue to prevent throughout the winter time as well. Is there anything else in just thinking about this topic and again, as we kind of wrap up our conversation here around preventing these pests, is there anything else that you think we need to be really concerned about?
Well, I think it's really important. We talk a lot about dogs, but I want to stress the importance of doing that with cats too. Cats can get these diseases as well. A lot of tick diseases, we focus a lot on dogs, but cats, there has been cases of cats getting tick diseases too. And they can also, like I said, bring them into the house as well. A lot of indoor cats are not on flea prevention. Do they necessarily need to be on tick prevention if they're indoor? Probably not. I will say there are some ticks that will hide in the wood through the cracks, and so sometimes they get into the house that way during the winter, so there is a chance a tick could get in. But there definitely is more likely to get fleas even in indoor cats inside your house, especially if you live in an apartment building or complex. If you have friends and family that have animals, like I said, it doesn't take too much effort for those eggs and fleas to be carried into another person's house and get another pet. And because of the diseases that these fleas can bring in, it's really crucial. I strongly recommend year-round indoor cat flea prevention for indoor cats. Do you remember Noopy?
I do.
So we had this cat, and we always have multiple cats. And but this cat was wonderful. This cat actually lived to be 23 years old, and he was a great cat. He was very stubborn when it came to flea prevention, and so we had indoor cats, and I basically pretty much line them up and start putting the flea prevention on them. But he would know when it was coming, and he would take off, and I was like, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow. Well, there was one day where I noticed he was scratching his neck a lot, and I look and there's nothing there, and I'm like, all right, I'll keep an eye on it, and just like you guys probably do too. And in the next couple days, I noticed he's still scratching, and I'm like, oh, I haven't got that flea prevention on him. I didn't see one flea. And our dogs were fine, our other cats were fine. I did not see one flea, but I had this sense, based on what I was seeing, that there was a flea involved, and I went ahead and started to do the flea prevention, and sure enough, it doesn't take long, by the way, but I would say about a week, that scratching decreased. He actually had a little irritation at that point around his neck, and that went away, and I always laugh to myself because I've been there. I've had fleas on my pets. It happens, and this cat was strictly indoors, so it definitely can happen.
That's a really great reminder, Dr. Tasha. Thank you for that. As we wrap up our conversation here today, do you have any parting thoughts regarding what your go-forward plans are for these particular FaceTime Live events?
Yeah. And before I actually touch upon that, I do see some people watching, so I just want to make sure that you guys don't have any questions about anything. Before we wrap up, I think we probably got another 5-10 minutes. So feel free to shoot out some questions about flea prevention, heartworm prevention, tick prevention, anything any questions you might have. I'd love to answer them for you. Regarding the Facebook Live, so Ken has decided to continue doing this with me, so that's really good. He gets a cup of coffee before he comes here. I treat him to a coffee, so it's good.
Yeah, it's good payment.
And so we're going to be doing it every month. We're going to take off December for the holidays. We do wish you guys a wonderful holiday season and a Merry Christmas. And then we'll see you guys in the new year. In January, on the 4th, I'm actually going to be in Barnstead, New Hampshire. It's a place called Inspire Canines. I always mess that name up. I'm pretty sure it's Inspire Canines or Canine Inspire. And it's in Barnstead. It's a trainer out there. She's actually going to be having a workshop with multiple people in the pet field. They're going to be speaking. So we'd love to have you there. I will send you some more information as it comes my way, and we'll let you know more about that. And then in February, we'll start off again with the Facebook Lives. And I really would love to know what topics you'd like me to discuss. I definitely have a lot of different thoughts, but I want to make sure we cover something that you're interested in. So please send me some feedback at the end of this video. Let me know what things you might want to be discussed further, or if there's any other topics that you'd like us to talk about. We'd love to do that for you.
Great. Well, hey, thank you so much for the time today. We appreciate it. And we appreciate you joining us as well.
Yes.
And so we look forward to further discussions on Facebook Live. And have a wonderful day.
Bye.